Much quicker than the previous ones we've seen.
Very enthusiastic.
You think they want to get out?
Yes, thanks very much. To recall that when the monkey re-entered, the monkey we've been hearing about during this program, or the previous programs, they tried to do an air snatch. They missed it. I don't know whether this could possibly be a development for future astronauts to snatch them in the air.
As they fall?
Yes.
To pick them up from the shrouds of their parachute?
Yes.
On a passing aircraft?
Yes, yes.
It's a bit violent, I suppose.
I don't know. They tried to do this with the monkey, but they missed him.
The problem is you have to cater for the fact of missing him. You finish up with the same system in the sea on some occasions as you have now.
Yeah, but Jeffrey Potter, do you think that's a possibility in the future, this air snatch style?
Oh, well, yes. I mean, all the reconnaissance satellite capsules from America are recovered by air snatch now. The films that come back are snatched by aircraft specially designed. This is reasonable for unmanned craft. Quite frankly, I don't think it's reasonable for manned craft. I think one goes from the sea recovery to a precisely located land recovery, a soft landing effectively, the reverse of the moon, but with much greater energy because of the high acceleration, high gravity fields on the Earth and the atmosphere.
You're also talking about a rather heavy spacecraft, about 5,000 pounds compared to 50 pounds for an unmanned.
Yeah.
Any minute now, the helicopter should be closing in to begin to hoist the astronauts up into the helicopters for the lift back to the ship, just a few yards away. And the hatch there you hear is closed once more. There, the astronauts in the raft on the right-hand side of the command module.
The hatch is secured and all three astronauts now on raft 1. Recovery 1 helicopter will move in shortly. Drifting comfortably in raft number 1.
This, of course, causes lots of problems the Russians don't have, Jeffrey Potter, with their landings on the land.
Yes, I mentioned they already use this other technique. They are less able to deploy ships in this way, and they've got a large land mass, and that's where they recover. They use a half-and-half technique. They use parachutes, but just in the final stages, as the spacecraft is coming towards the ground, they fire some retro-rockets, some solid rockets, which cushion the fall by rockets and land very gently on the surface. Now, the next stage is rocket deceleration all the way down, of course.
But the Russian system is a good deal more dangerous.
Well, it's more dangerous in the sense if the rockets fail, it will have a very high impact. But in the early flights, they also provided for the astronauts to be ejected, and they did eject as well, on their own parachute. So they had an alternative mode. Admittedly, at those times, they weren't using this little rocket system. But I think it's within the degree of reliability you have to have for the whole mission, and without any doubt, it's got to be that sort of technique which will be used later on. An alternative which has been considered by the Americans is a paraglider, an inflatable glider, which they can more or less fly down. The glider inflates through a flexible material, and there's a delta wing above the capsule. They didn't develop it quite in time.
Any second now, the Billy Q net, as it's called, the basket-like thing with which they scoop up the astronauts, should be going down. Making signals there saying, let it on down now. Two swimmers there in the water you can just see.
You can see the crew right to the right of the command module. I think you can even see the face mask.
Yep, there they are. We should hear identification of who he is pretty soon. With this Navy crew, my guess is the last one up will be the commander, Pete Conrad, the last to leave the ship.
Recovery to the first astronaut aboard is Commander Gordon. Condition is good.
Dick Gordon in first there. Command module pilot Dick Gordon in the
We
helicopter
repeat
first.
that last report. The first astronaut aboard is Commander Gordon. Condition good. Standing by for pickup number 2.
Helicopter moving slowly and backwards there.
Like you hit it right on the button. Conrad's going to be loud.
Looks like it.
Recovery. Second astronaut aboard, Commander Bean. We repeat that last report. The second astronaut aboard, Commander Alan Bean. In preparation for the third pickup.
Pete Conrad there looking upwards, anxiously waiting his turn to get out of a fairly rough sea. Helicopter, you can see from the way they're looking, maneuvering right in above them. Helicopters there reporting in all operations normal. There it is, coming in for the last hoist. The net halfway down there you can see.
If they zoom up, I think we'll be able to see Conrad again.
The same technique, the helicopter coming in. Pete Conrad, Pete Conrad looks, the way he's behaving here, to be a rather typically Navy man, last out of his ship.
You said it. I don't know how I can comment on that. He's very much a Navy man.
will have had a little more practice at not being seasick though than some of the other crews, being all Navy like this.
Last time Pete went up, they used a somewhat different system, the collar that goes around. It was quite a hazardous operation since they got it on backwards, and you're in danger of slipping out of it. And so you can imagine, although that doesn't look very high from here, that's some ways that you don't want to fall back onto the water.
That helicopter itself looks to be, apart from the camera moving up and down, the helicopters aren't all that terribly stable, are they?
I think they're pretty stable, actually. In fact, they're clearly doing an excellent job without sea state, with the turbulent air. He gets that thing down, and the pilot's looking forward, of course. It's quite a difficult maneuvering task.
The helicopters turn towards the ship.
Hornet is the third astronaut. He's in position number 4.
Hornet asking there about the condition in which Pete Conrad is. No reply from the helicopter.
Well, it's just about all over except for the shouting and the speeches and the parades and the goodwill tours
And a few days inside
And we can go on from there. All the astronauts are aboard helicopter 66, and all are in good condition.
This report is the American commentator on the Hornet.
66 in 2 or 3 minutes. As Peter Hackett said, the flight surgeon aboard the helicopter, Dr. Clarence Jernigan, needs time to consult with surgeons aboard the carrier about decontamination procedures, about whether they were properly observed. If it is decided that they were properly observed, that no one else was contaminated, why the helicopter will come in and land on spot 5, just short of elevator number 2. And the astronauts will go below and enter quarantine. Now, if it is decided that someone else may have been exposed to the possibility of contamination, why those persons will have to enter the backup quarantine trailer. We don't believe, of course, that has happened. We've just been told that the astronauts are in outstanding condition. That word coming from helicopter 66 from Dr. Jernigan. The ship itself is making a turn again. It is turning directly into the wind now. This is necessary. Otherwise, the helicopter with a rotor coming in. The air officer of this helicopter, Commander Patch, has just advised the flight deck to land helicopter 66 on spot 5. That's the spot from which it took off earlier this morning to make this pickup of the Apollo 12 astronauts. Standing by is a ground crew, Airedales, these men are called by the Navy, to assist in the bending of the rotor blades back on the helicopter. The blades are normally bent back from the cockpit, but on one of the simulated pickup exercises, the cockpit encountered some trouble bending the blades back, so it has stationed on the flight deck a crew of Airedales to stand by and manually move those blades back if necessary. The blades have to be bent back in order for the helicopter to fit onto the flight elevator. The hangar deck is directly below the flight deck. Several hundred sailors out on the flight deck here to see Helicopter 66 come in and the mission of Apollo 12 end. Among them are 30 members of the ship's band. They will play 2 or 3 tunes when the helicopter sets down and then go below to play for the ceremony that will follow. Before going out today, the crew of Helicopter 66 had a stencil painted onto the nose of that ship, the 4th emblem of an Apollo capsule. As Peter has mentioned, this helicopter has picked up the Apollo 8, the Apollo 10, the Apollo 11, and now the Apollo 12 astronauts. 12 Apollo astronauts plucked out of the water in the Pacific by this one helicopter. And we can see the Apollo 12 emblem. It was covered over with paper when the ship went out this morning, and a string ran from that paper up the side of the nose into the cockpit window. Commander Off, after picking up Conrad, the 3rd astronaut, lifted from the command module, yanked that string and tore off the paper. We can see a little piece of the string still there with a stencil. He told me that if the paper didn't come off, he was going to reach out and pull it off. Well, that's all. Shut it down. Recovery complete, announces the air officer, and the helicopter is being secured. Shocks are being put under the landing gears. The engines are being shut down. And a man is placing a sign right above that Apollo emblem that says, 3 more, like before. It may not be perfect English or grammar, but it certainly conveys the feeling of the Hornet crew here today. This is their slogan for this mission, 3 more like before. Meaning, of course, the Apollo 11 astronauts, which this same carrier also picked up. That sign was attached by Chief Petty Officer Richard Smith. He's in charge of these Airedales, and he's from Fredericksburg, Texas, which is also the home of or was the home of another famous Navy man, Admiral Nimitz. Now, Commander Holt and his new pilot, Lieutenant Junior Grade Glenn Casey, will stay in the cockpit. They are still on oxygen to avoid any contamination. Their 2 crew members, Dominguez and Cunningham, by now should have moved forward, leaving the astronauts in the aft compartment with Dr. Jernigan. Before coming forward, Cunningham and Dominguez were to have snipped off their heavy, hot biological isolation garments, their big suits, leaving them behind to be decontaminated, but continuing to wear their respirators. You can see in the foreground there civilians. These are members of the Apollo recovery team that came aboard the Hornet last night. They are waving into the window. That is Jerome Hammock, the head of recovery for the Apollo program, for the manned space program. And with him is John Stonepfeifer, the deputy chief of recovery. John Stonepfeifer and Jerome Hammock with the NASA recovery team. The band is playing the Naval Academy version of Anchors Away, and we can see an astronaut waving out the window of the aircraft. The little yellow mule that is pulling the helicopter, by the way, has a sign that says the Army. That game, of course, coming up, I believe, this weekend. Chief James Fox, the band leader, took all through his repertoire to find a song that contained the word Yankee in honor of the Yankee Clipper. And this was the only one he could come up with, but it seemed singularly appropriate. Has been lowered to the hangar deck and is being wheeled now forward and turned around. It will be pushed back some 200 feet, I would estimate, alongside the quarantine trailer. And then the astronauts will exit, and we will get a better look at them as they step some 35 to 40 feet to enter the trailer. They will, of course, be wearing their respirators, and we won't see all of their features, but we should be able to tell who they are, of course. We can see someone now. You can see the astronauts inside the helicopter, which is at the moment being towed into position next to the mobile quarantine facility, this trailer-like object on the hangar deck in which they'll be spending at least the next 5 days before they get to Houston. A number of VIPs, officials, have gathered here. We'll be telling you about them in a moment. There you see the helicopter now being backed into position very slowly on the hangar deck, which is one deck below the flight deck. The astronauts still inside. The quarantine rules being observed. A number of NASA officials walking along with the helicopter, which is being pushed into position. Now you see the plastic entryway, which is rigged up just outside the mobile quarantine facility. This has nothing to do, actually, with the arrival of the astronauts. This is an anticipation of the arrival of the spacecraft, which will be hooked up to it, here again, to preserve the quarantine integrity. Helicopter 66 being lowered into position. In a moment, the astronauts will be out and on deck. Some NASA people will move over a small wooden step. And here you see that step now being moved into place by John Stonecypher on the right, Fred Strongholz on the left of the NASA recovery team. The three astronauts now coming forward, and with their respirators on, I'll be darned if I can tell which is who. The three astronauts now walking briefly across the hangar deck and into the facility, there to be locked up again. There's the doctor, Dr. Jernigan, and Randy Stone, the technician inside, and they will remain now in quarantine for another 18 days. which is the full 3 weeks. They count the 3-day trip back from the moon as part of that quarantine. The helicopter number 66 being rolled away from that spot. It will be taken back to the flight deck, where it too will be decontaminated. It will be filled with formaldehyde gas.
And with the successful recovery of the brilliantly successful Apollo 12, that's all from us in the Space Studio, from Tony Nicholson, Kurt Michael, Patrick Moore, Jeffrey Pardo and me. Good night.